Beautiful.
I see her name. Maybe she listens or hears me.
There she is.
So, I'm not going to sing like you, though.
That's okay. You don't have to. Your voice is enough of a symphony in itself.
Yeah, right.
You. It's just so good to see your face because I feel like, when's the last time we even FaceTimed?
Well, it's been a long time. Yeah, like probably 3 months.
It's just too long.
Maybe more.
And I haven't seen your face for a couple years, maybe.
Well, has it been that long? I know it's been a long time. Well, I guess I feel like I've seen your face because I've watched a couple of your podcasts. So
you have? Oh, so sweet.
Yes.
Which ones?
The Rira. What's her name? Rira Aurora. Nira Aurora. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really sorry about that.
That's
name
fine.
Butchering. Hey. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. So I just wanted to. I'm excited because I haven't talked with you guys for so long, and the permanence of this podcast is just getting to me. So just
amazing. Amazing.
I know what you're saying about that, and it's funny how I got over that really quickly in the beginning because I think that I just decided I have nothing to hide. Like I just decided like what, it's not like I'm not running for I was going to say president. We don't even live in the States. Okay. But you know what
yes.
But I stand for you. So Ashley, well, first of all, we did a little quick introduction to you.
Yes.
We bowed down to you and all.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
You can watch it back.
I think I'm going to close the blinds behind me because I'm really blacked out. Just give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Lighting is always such a hard one, isn't it? Like
it took you forever to convince me to get a ring light. So
it's so light.
Okay,
that's better.
Better now. You can see me.
Yes, we can.
Lighting is a science. Like it is it is not easy. And like even with our ring lights, like I still don't really. Anyway, it's just such a
well, you guys are popping my cherry today for, as they say, for podcasts.
Amazing.
It's my first podcast ever. So
yay.
Fantastic. We're so happy that you chose us to pop your cherry with.
and who better to? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I was just saying that, like, just before you popped on, we did do a little introduction. You'll have to listen or watch it back because I
will.
Nice things said about you, and there will be more nice things said about you. But basically, what I was saying, I kind of explained how we met, and I didn't go into really necessarily your story or your journey because I just wanted, in a nutshell, I asked you to be on this podcast because I wanted to give you a platform if you choose to use it however you wish to use it and to discuss whatever you want to discuss. So I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I don't want you to feel like, I don't know.
No expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No expectations. So, I mean, honestly, I didn't really want to tell much of your story from my words because they don't do it justice. But basically all I said was, as a woman and as two women that identify as women, I will say this again. You are someone that I've always looked up to when it comes to finding confidence in themselves.
Thank you.
As just no, but I'm serious, like as a human being, but especially as a woman, because it's just, I'm comfortable in my own body. Like, so anyway, like just meeting you was very special. And I'm just so happy that we're friends. And I just talked about what a wonderful chiropractic doctor you are. And not just saying that because you are a friend, but because I know a lot to you and you've helped many, many people. And then just how we connected, initially because of our businesses, really. I mean, just both going through this turmoil with being small business owners and being right around the corner from each other. And then you very bravely confiding in me about your, transitioning when we met, right? And so ever since then, we've been really good friends. So,
yeah. Well, you have that. I just had a feeling with you right away that I could trust you, you know, and you were one of the first people that I came out to, and
Really?
yeah, it was
I,
yeah.
maybe I do remember that. Yeah,
Mm,
and that makes me feel, thank you. Yeah, thank you for trusting me because I know that was a big deal. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, everyone has their own experience of whether it's coming out or whatever, but um, you know, for me, I mean, it took a long time to really figure things out and you know to get that inner strength to come out to, because there's a lot of and maybe we'll get into this at one point, but a lot of very strong forces and barriers
yeah.
that I put up myself, and that you know, I think were there when I was growing up, that just made it extremely hard to even vocalize any thoughts that I had at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I'm really happy not only just to see you guys, but also just to be here, because this is a really big time for important time for um, you know, as it seems to often be for the queer community in general, but for trans people. Um, you know, there is such a huge anti-trans and sentiment and backlash against trans people going on right now, you know, around the world, but, you know, definitely, um, you know, not just in the States, but in Canada as well. And I posted something on my stories the other day on my Instagram about, you know, one of the Langley federal MPs, like, still arguing for conversion therapy, and you know, the right now the Canadian government is trying to outlaw that, and it just blows my mind that there are people that can think that that's still okay, you know, and then down in the States, there's,
Yeah.
well, I think 30 now. I mean, there were at least 31 anti-trans bills, and a lot of these, unfortunately, are focused on trans kids and just allowing, you know, like, trans girls to compete with other girls in sports. And you know, when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you're not really competing, right? You're just having fun playing with friends. And you know, if the kids are, you know, supported by their doctors and their families, you know, that's the most important thing. And that's one thing that I think I'll touch on a lot today is that support, you know, when you're young. It can change your life, and it certainly would have with me. But right now, I'm just such a big advocate of just supporting kids, uh, you know, just in any topic, to feel okay, to feel safe, to uh, to express their feelings, to say, you know, I feel this inside. You know, what does that mean? Because when you're a kid, you might not know what it means. I didn't know what it meant, and unfortunately, I had no resources to find out what it meant. And luckily, nowadays, there are far more resources for kids to figure out what that means, and to give them the space to explore that is really important. And you know, not only was I not able to do that, but you know, the thought of doing that not only, I think, created a lot of anxiety that I still have dealing with today, but you know, there could be serious, you know, very serious repercussions um, uh, from expressing those feelings, whether it be, you know, punishment or, you know, ostracation or whatever.
Well,
And so, yeah, so supporting trans kids right now is one of my biggest things for sure.
yeah. No, and I well, and that only makes sense because, well, it makes sense anyway, but with your own experience, excuse me, excuse me, with your own experience, just talking about how you like, I can't even imagine not being true to you that many years of your life. And so it only makes sense that, you know, why get down to the roots of human beings, and hopefully, you know, for a lack of better words, like, come out of the womb and feel like, okay, this is it. Just me. Like you know, we talk Hero and I, we've talked a lot, maybe not specifically with the trans community, but just how in general, like, why the fuck does it feel like certain aspects of life are going backwards? It's like we're going in a way. There's did you freeze? Oh no.
She looks fabulous.
She looks amazing. Oh, Ashley, that's a good picture.
It's a really good picture. Oh my God, I love it. It's very much like Joanna from America's Next Top Model Cycle 2 with the finale with the motorcycle helmet on, and then this is the head close up.
Beautiful bone structure. Like, just,
oh my God, I know.
I compliment her the whole time.
No, but it's so true though, and it's completely sincere and genuine. Like I'm getting major Joanna and TM Cycle 2 finale. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up right now if you're listening to this, and you'll see what I mean. It's absolutely beautiful.
Okay, I'm just texting her. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, hopefully she'll shine some light onto this too, but just why do we feel like, and we've said this before, that we feel like we're going backwards, like old times? And I don't know. It's bizarre how there's certain things that just don't seem to be progressing.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of stuff that's going backwards, and I can't help but to think that it's from the treachery of Trump.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah. Well, because
sorry to say.
No, because he made. Oh, here. What did she say?
She said that we froze for her as well.
Trying to reconnect. Okay, we're good on our end. That's what's so great about doing this with a really good friend, because you could just quickly communicate back and forth.
So easily, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You imagine if Carla Hall did this, she'd be like, no.
Oh, come on. Yeah, no, that is, well, she is, yeah, she's definitely a pro. Even her microphone and everything, her sound.
Oh, I know, it was incredible.
Good.
And her donuts, her delicious donuts. However, I definitely think that the poison of the American government from before Biden came into power definitely took a back step. Because as we even talk in Canada or even in the UK, people focus on the American government so much more than their own government, which is so telling.
I know. Well, it just kind of, it made it seem okay, in quotations, to just, like, freedom of speech, say whatever the fuck you want, be whoever the hell you are. If it's hateful, if it's hate, and if it's, you know, bigotry, like homophobia, all that kind of shit, like all those people out of the shadows.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that definitely is has something to do with it as well.
And I'm not happy it happened. However, if those people are now being brought into the spotlight, then it shows a lot of fact that these people were there all along, and now these people are coming out, and that they are not going to get away with it, even if there might be repercussions that go through it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I gotcha.
Are you there?
Oh my God, yes. Sorry.
Getting help from Sophia?
No, like, I don't know what happened there. Like, I think our internet went down for a minute there.
No problem. I love it.
So sorry.
Don't be sorry whatsoever. It's just funny that we have you, and then we have you beside with your name in a white.
I know. I
love it.
I was almost going to join with my phone because maybe, I don't know. Anyways, I'm glad I'm back.
I've done that before too. And Rachel's like, "Oh no, we lost Hero. Oh, there's Hero again." Then she says some shade about me, and then I come back and I'm like, "What did I miss?" Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Yes. oh, that Ashley, she's trans, but she's supposed to know all about computers because trans people,
Oh my God.
they're they're all IT people.
Love that. I love it.
Uh,
Are they trans it?
oh my gosh,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. It's anyways. I'm not very IT, so I'm glad I somehow got you guys back.
Me too.
Oh,
Anyways,
absolutely.
Another
yes.
photo of you as a still shot in the box that's next to you for when we.
Is it? Yeah.
You don't.
The shot of you and I in front of on Granville Street when we went to see the RuPaul's drag show.
Yes, we were talking about that actually, because I think that might have been the last time I saw you in person.
It might be. It might be. That
It
was a
might be.
couple years ago.
It was a
Yeah.
couple years ago. My God, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
total transformation for both of us.
Yeah. 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 Gone through a lot since then. It's been an interesting ride. Anyways.
Yeah.
And so what Rachel was explaining is that, this is your space to share whatever you're comfortable sharing, and there's no obligation to divulge whatever you don't wish to share.
Yeah.
I think it would be really fantastic if you were comfortable in whatever lens you would like to create it from, just kind of how you came to be who you are today. And that's a loaded question for sure, but we'd like to kind of get to know the person behind what we see right now and how they
For
ended
sure.
up to being where they are now and where they're going. Kind of, as we kind of say, pulling the mask off of whoever we speak with and kind of taking a closer look into their heart and their soul, their spirit.
Just go through every your life. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Well.
No.
Yeah. No. Well, I think the best way to talk about it is to it's like the prologue to a story where you start in the present and then you go back in time. And I guess we're talking about. We'll start with. Well, in the period of time, let's say between 4 years ago and maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we'll say, I was having a lot of.
Oh no.
I was having a lot of issues with. Are we freezing again? Or are we good?
You're freezing again.
Oh, really?
You know
Oh,
what?
you're fine.
Now you're fine. And I was gonna say I
Okay.
can edit this or whatever afterwards, but
Okay.
maybe it has something to do with, for some reason, and your other account is still on and trying to connect.
Okay. Let me just turn it off.
Yeah, so that might.
Oh, now I'm on. Doo!
Oh, that's so neat.
There's two of me in stereo.
Well,
Oh my God,
Side
that's a really cool.
Okay. I don't know how okay. Leave meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
that could. Okay, perfect.
I'm hoping that's going to help. So, I couldn't sleep for years, basically as an adult. I would sleep, but I would have terrible nightmares every night. Wake up in cold sweats, and I always had dreams of running away, being chased, running away from whether it was bad people or bad aliens, or being like a resistance fighter in World War II or something. It was always like hiding, running away, escaping. And it's funny because went to therapy about that and everything, and we never really got to the crux of why that was happening. And I guess over time, I got to a point where it's like, okay, I have to really be better at listening to my inner voice and not putting it away. Because every time I'd have a thought, I'd crush it down and just say, oh, it'd be cool to look like that, or I wish I looked like that, or imagine myself in that person's shoes, or even like in that person's body. And um, I got, after a while, just so, um, I always called it my inner pain. And it was just, it got to a point where it's just so bad, where I couldn't focus on anything. I feel like I couldn't parent very well. I couldn't be a good spouse. I couldn't really function that well. I was getting by at work, because I could, that was something for me to focus on outside of myself. And I think that's why I got, into a lot of, sports and high level sports, and then, weightlifting and competing and CrossFit and everything else. But it came to a point where it got worse and worse. And so I, spent a lot of evenings before bed just kind of having quiet time with myself, and just started to just see, like, what am I actually thinking? What if I actually went through with something that I'm thinking? Like, for example, like, I wish, I had, that person's body, and I'm looking at this Instagram model, or some model on a fashion show or something like that. It was always that. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be that bodybuilding dude or something. Like, I never wanted to be that person. And and then I just started, it's kind of weird, but different things happen. Like, Caitlyn Jenner came out, and Laverne Cox started to be much more famous and popular, and there were a number of people that started to be more in the daily vernacular, and the daily society, part of society, and every time I was exposed to this little bit of someone coming out, or someone explaining their story or whatever, I felt, well, I feel the same way. What does that mean? So, to make a very long story shorter, I started Googling everything, because of course the internet has been around for a while now, but it wasn't around when I was a kid. And
Right.
when I started to actually acknowledge these feelings, I just, what does it mean if I wish I was a girl? And yeah, and all these questions came out, and every single time I get pushed to these trans websites, and are you trans, and all these questionnaires and different things like that. And I think a lot of these questionnaires have their flaws, and some of them have their validity, but it helped me process some of these feelings. And one night, when I was reading someone's story, I think on Reddit or something, and it was a fairly long story about how they felt inside, and how they wish they were a girl, and it was literally like I wrote it.
Wow.
And it was this wave that came over me, and I just broke down and cried for about an hour in my living room at 11 o'clock at night, or 12 o'clock at night, whatever it was, curled up in a ball, and like, oh my God, that's me, I'm trans. And I thought, oh my God, my life is over. And yeah, like, because the consequences of that were crazy.
Well, can I ask, sorry to interrupt, but just to paint,
yeah, no,
maybe to paint a broader picture for everyone too. At the time, may I ask, like, how old you were? And then at the time where you were you were married, correct?
Yeah.
And you had
I'd been married, yeah,
a couple kids. So, it's,
yeah,
that's a lot. And you, yeah. So I guess that's my first question. And then my second question is, had you had these thoughts? I don't want to, I feel like it was your whole life. You always had the same kind of thoughts, or was more clear later? in your life in your adulthood?
Well, it has become more and more clear over time.
Of course.
And I think, yeah, like just before we get to that, yeah, I was married. I was 42, 3 at the time, which is, fairly old to start transitioning, but it's never too late. I'll
No.
just say that. And the one other thing was that I, I had, I had two older kids from a previous marriage, and then I got remarried. We had twins, so all of a sudden I had 4 kids, and then we adopted another kid, so I had 5 kids, and I had a business with 8 or 9 employees, and I'd been married for, I don't know what it was at that time, 8 or 9 years at that time, maybe almost 10 years, and um, it was just the ramifications of making that kind of a change on my life just were completely overwhelming. So that was part of it. So after I did that, I went to therapy and discussed my feelings with my therapist, and everything started to open up in my brain.
Mhm.
And all of those walls, it was literally like the Berlin Wall coming down. Like it was like that moment where, you know, that day when I remember sitting there watching on TV as, you know, all those people in, I guess, East and West Germany just taking down pieces of the walls, and it was just like this massive release of feelings and emotion, but like a real aha moment, and just explaining so many behaviors that I had and so many um, things that I did throughout my life, and it all started to make sense. And it's here we are 3 4 years later, and 7, 8, 9, 20, 4 years later, and it's things are still kind of coming to me, and that trauma, I think, from early on, just gets repressed, right? And people deal with it in different ways, and some people, attack it head on, and whether I wasn't strong enough at that time to do that, or whether I just, whatever it was, I just repressed everything, and put everything into ski racing, and then
Yeah.
becoming a chiropractor, and then into one sport after another, and going to a high level, like going to a high level ski racing, and then becoming a doctor of chiropractic, and then getting a second degree black belt taekwondo. I mean, all these things are follow a very familiar pattern of just really immersing myself into something, and then competing at CrossFit, and um, I realized that that was just basically a way to think about something else while I repressed all these feelings.
Yes.
Yeah. So, going back then to, have I always had these feelings? Like, the beginning of, I think, the realization, or the feeling that I was like, I remember being, and I was trying to think of an age. It must be 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. I remember having a bath, and then getting out of the bath and looking at myself in the mirror, and going, why can't I have a girl's body? Like, I'm kind of stuck in this body. It's weird, but I guess that's a normal feeling. I guess I'll just live with it, or whatever. And you know, and then I'd have these feelings periodically, and a lot of the and this is where things get really weird with growing up, and having that attraction to women,
Hmm.
but also wanting to be them, and um, you know not separating the two until I was much older. And that was the hardest thing, because I always thought that I just was like really, 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 really interested in women.
Right.
But you know and the fact is, once I had that realization to myself that that I was trans, and that I, in fact, was repressing these feelings of like just, not having the right body and not being outwardly, the way I felt I should have been designed. And, separating that attraction from wanting to be that person or be, have a woman's body. And so one of the things that I think that was ultimately, hard for our marriage and why I ultimately ended up getting divorced is, that's a big part of it. There's other issues too, but, that, you're now with somebody who doesn't, have those preferences. And, and I think some people are lucky that, their relationship and their inner core is strong enough that they stay together. And other times it's just like, yeah, that's not really what I signed up for, and,
Yeah.
and, that's fine, and, we moved on and, I think I've had more growth in the last 3 or 4 years internally and as a person than I had in, 42, 43 before that. And so,
That brings
yeah,
something I was going to say. Actually, it was a really good segue because I feel like when we first met, because I know that was kind of the beginning stages of you really accepting that this was you and you were starting to transition. And what I noticed, and I think we talked about this a little bit too, is almost like you were going through puberty
yeah,
the first time. Not almost, you were like,
totally.
maybe almost for the first time in your life, because
Yeah.
this is who you are. And so I guess my question is, do you feel, and this is why it's so important to talk to kids about, and why, and I understand why that's so important to you as well, so that they don't feel suppressed their whole lives, but not just suppressed from society, but suppressed in their growth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like, do you feel like growth wise, it's almost like, and you're a very intellectually smart person. That's not what I mean, but as far as going through adolescence and going through those different stages in life, it's almost like maybe you never were fully able to do that until you were in your 40s.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I will borrow a term from my ex that she used to describe her brother one time. Sorry. But,
Names.
no names. And I just feel like, like I was emotionally stunted and, emotionally stunted and, kind of kept in this place just as puberty was about to start.
Yeah.
Because when you're a really young kid, like let's say just less than 10, life is beautiful, things are simple, hopefully you're just playing with friends, you don't have the weight of the world on your shoulders is really what I mean. I know it's tough for some kids, but, I didn't necessarily have a huge problem with like just having fun, going out and playing, and it wasn't destroying me. But when I went through like testosterone puberty through my teens, that's when things really got bad. And that's when all those feelings that I described earlier started to really come up.
Okay.
And I thought those were all just normal. And and so I feel I was kind of left behind there. And then when I started transitioning as an adult, not only was I physically going through a second puberty,
Yeah.
but I was emotionally and as a person going through a puberty where I was actually really truly becoming myself as an adult.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're kind of referring to. And I think it's one of those situations where I allowed myself to explore every feeling I had and explore all those stages. So, people talk about like, oh, they're in this phase as a teenager, like the goth phase and this phase and the rocker phase, you go through all these things. And I never really did that.
Mhm.
And through my first few years of transitioning, I did do that. And, I, I literally did everything that I envisioned myself doing as a teenager and throughout my life, and wearing different styles of clothes, hang out with different people, experiencing different things, and and through that process, like a teenager, you make mistakes, but that's okay, you know, and I think you have to make those mistakes to really find that equilibrium of where you are. And I think finally in the last year or two, especially, I have started to find that equilibrium of where I am. So, I absolutely love getting dressed up and wearing fancy dresses. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see my New Year's Eve. I got dressed to the nines for New Year's, even though we were just inside the living room.
Yep.
But then, the next day I will dress with like knee-high leather boots with buckles and look like an assassin ready to kill somebody. And then, and then the next day I'll wear a super boho chic flowery dress. And, and I'm like, I feel it's okay for me to do that. Not only, can I do that just because I'm an adult, but I think anybody should be able to do that. If that's how, they want to express themselves that day or that year or however, that's fine. And, I always felt like it was never okay to do that. And so now, and this is what the point that I'm getting to is, I'm showing up here with a t-shirt and a baseball hat, my hair tied back. I would never have, had the guts to do that in my first 6 months to a year of transitioning. Like I had to go through that stage of like, I threw out every piece of blue clothing I had.
Wow.
Because I felt dysphoric and I just felt that ill ease of even wearing blue. So a lot of times I was wearing pink stuff that just washed my skin out, and actually I think looking back didn't look very good. But it is what it is. But it happens that blue actually I think is a better color for me. But so now I have a bunch of blue stuff again, and
But see,
and I
it's the labels again that society has
yeah.
on us, and that's all that. Yeah, it makes sense for sure.
Yeah, and it's it goes far beyond my level of understanding of psychology to know why society wants to box and label everybody. But
Yeah.
And I have to thank my partner Sophia a lot for that, because it's she actually gets angry when people put her in a box, or people put themselves into a box. And she's been one of those people that have been very strong to be able to just almost never come out and just always be like, this is who I am. And she was also lucky enough to have support when she was younger of who she was. And she buys me this stuff. It's like, sorry, I bought you this jacket. I know it's kind of like a men's jacket, but I'm like, that's fine. Like I would never have touched that with a 10-foot pole before, but I'm okay enough now with who I am to be like, okay, I can put on that men's shirt, and that's fine,
Yeah.
Not wear makeup. I mean, COVID has helped that because it's made me very lazy with makeup. But today I don't have 1 ounce of makeup on, and I'm on a podcast. I'm like, that's fine, because that's me, right?
Absolutely. Hey, I haven't worn a bra in since the beginning of COVID.
Neither have I.
I know I have to wear one for work, but otherwise almost never.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
Bras are so overrated. Free the nipple.
Oh,
Oh,
It's one of those things where sometimes I'll reach the end of the day at work and I'll just take off my bra before I leave my office and go
Yeah.
home, drive home without the bra on, because it's I have a job where I can't work from home. I have to actually go to my clinic and my office
Yeah.
and work with people, and so I'm like, oh, I have to get dressed today.
well, and speaking of work, because that's a whole other thing as well, coming out and transitioning, and I know you didn't really touch upon uh, the challenges of that,
No.
or the perceived, I guess, the fear and the perception of how you would be perceived
Hmm.
Yeah.
with clients and people that have known you for a very, very long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how was that?
Well, that whole experience was actually very surprising to me.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I already had a lot of anxiety, and I had a huge amount of anxiety over, having this business, with, I forget what it was, 8, 9, 10 employees at the time,
Right.
and I was going through a transition, going through a divorce, and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my business, and have my business be viable while going through all this stuff.
Yes.
And so, for both personal and financial reasons, I just felt it was a better way to go, to just try to simplify my life at the time, and closed kind of my larger office and moved into where I am now at a CrossFit gym, and uh, not have to worry about employees, or kind of running a larger business, and a larger small business,
Hmm.
and just kind of focus on me. And then once I did that, by the time I went through all those steps, I had been transitioning everywhere except for work.
Right.
And so I had been going out as female, and even on hormones for quite some time. Uh,
Yeah.
and if I really wanted to, I could, definitely hide it longer, but it was
Right.
very, very hard for me to do that.
Actually remember even going out with you or like going out for lunch or something in Lower Lonsdale or in the North Van area. And I remember you kind of, I can't believe I forgot about that you hadn't really come out to work yet necessarily. And you'd
Hmm.
see maybe one of your clients from across the street and you'd kind of be like, oh God, like,
Yeah. Uh-oh.
seeing
Yeah.
ready for this. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I just can't, I don't know. I guess it's just me being naive to the fact that not everyone thinks the way I think, but I just don't understand how all of this is still such a big deal. Like I don't understand
Hmm.
human beings just be you. I don't get it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Well, it shouldn't be a big deal. And ultimately, it was a big deal, but on the other hand, it was like, it was a bigger deal in my head than it was in reality. And
Hmm.
I think that's a huge a part of that is, being lucky where we live. I think being in Vancouver is not perfect. There's a lot of stuff going on,
mhm,
but if I'm going to choose a place to transition, this is probably
Hmm.
one of the top 5 or 10 in the world to do it. And um, I had financial obligations, like with kids and stuff to worry about. I was worried about, okay, well, if I all of a sudden I'm not making any money, what's going to happen? How am I going to deal with this? So I was lucky enough to have a friend who's also a patient, who's one of the heads of the psychiatry department at St. Paul's, actually,
okay.
and we talk a lot, and we had lunch one day, and we kind of made a plan to, because he was kind of a unique situation. He was like ultimately, very, very thankful for his help, and because he had the position of also being a doctor that had patients, but having that background in psychology and psychiatry,
Yeah.
um, and also knowing me, to help me to kind of carve a path of, what may be the best way to go about
Mhm.
transitioning at work.
Okay.
So we carved a path with um, kind of almost like a discussion on my website, and basically a little handout that I would give people in the waiting room, because a lot of people would come into the waiting room and they would read this handout, and they had never seen me, and all of a sudden they're coming in and I'm presenting as female, and they're like, what's going on? So rather than have that take up a huge part of every office visit,
Gosh.
um, basically what I did was just outline, 5 or 6, very, very common questions and concerns, or thoughts or feelings that very often came up with people when I came out to them.
Mhm.
Just being open with those questions, and so that would kind of get that out of the way.
Wow.
And then when they came in, be like, hey, how's it going? You want to talk about it further? We can. If not, let's just do our thing.
Mhm.
And a few people wanted to talk about it a little bit more. A few people were like, yeah, whatever, I'm just here to get treated, that's all. And other people are just burst into tears of being so happy for me.
Oh.
And it's funny because there were certain patients that I was really worried to come out to, because you have this perception of people.
Yeah.
I think, again, these boxes where some big burly old school metal worker comes in, and I'm like, oh God, what's this guy going to say? And then he goes on talking about some friend of his that's trans, and how he's been friends with her for years, and I'm like, what? I'm like, and you just never know their reaction, and other people that you think are going to be your allies, you never see them again. So, at the end of the day, I think overall it went very well. And I think over time things just kind of filtered out, and I'm busier, as busy as I want to be right now. And I'm usually booked a few weeks in advance,
Wow.
and I definitely have a certain kind of clientele, but for the most part, it's just the average person that lives on the North Shore that's active, and my practice is on the North Shore, and it's just a wide spectrum of society. I pretty much see everybody, and so there's been a little bit of turnover, but at the end of the day, it turned out very, very well. And it's funny because every day I'd go to work and take a selfie of myself in what I was dressed in that day, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look back at those photos and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe I looked like that, and I've just changed so much and evolved and grown so much, and not just in the clothing, but just in that, looking at myself going, wow, that's a different person, and that person is much more confident in who she is,
Yeah.
um, and that just shows in that face looking back at the mirror, in the mirror, and a lot of what you said before is confidence and everything else. There was a little bit of faking it till you make it, but
Yeah. But some
but
people
being able to,
have the confidence to do that though, Ashley. Like they don't have the confidence
yeah,
to fake it before they make it. I mean, that takes a lot of guts as well, I think. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think I know, like, I'm kind of in touch with a lot of trans people that are just before transitioning or going through transition,
Yeah.
and that's what I just say is, like, I know, like, if you don't fully have that confidence, I mean, it will come. Just allow yourself to take that step into being afraid a little bit, and into fear. Don't be afraid of that fear.
Mhm.
And because that fear kept me in the closet for 30 years. And
Jeez.
um, taking that step forward and allowing yourself to just do that. If you try something and it's just not for you and you don't like it, well, you try something different. And And I think that's the most important thing, is just to, after a while, you just realize how freeing it is to just express yourself any way you want to, and just to be yourself, and going through those stages, like I said, making mistakes, that's okay.
Yeah.
you know um, going through and how you look, and being overly concerned about, as we say in the trans community, passing, like really, kind of passing as a cis woman, whereas being visibly trans. um, at the end of the day, there's not really a lot of people that I think, care too much. Like, they care more about who you are as a person. If they see someone
Hmm.
that's happy and expressing themselves, you're going to attract people, not just like in a physical attraction way, but like as friends and as a community, and people will want to be around you. They're not going to care how you look per se, or how much you pass, or whatever. It's going to be a matter of, just like, that person's really cool and really kind and really nice, and I want to be around that person. That person's positivity is infectious. And and at the end of the day, I think most people are okay with a person being who they are. And
Yeah.
you know um and if people are overly concerned about, oh, that person's trans, blah blah blah, and then starts off on all this negative ranting, that's a person that's hurting inside, and that's a person that, themselves is very likely repressed in many different ways.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
And they take that unhappiness out on other people. So I used to get really angry at people like that, but now it bothers me, less and less. It doesn't really bother me until someone, really tries to oppress someone else, like,
Hmm.
where we get into these trans bills that I talked about, of, not letting kids play sports of their gender identity. And so, that's where I get a little bit more upset. But um,
It's
yeah, and so it turned out really well.
So one thing that I'm curious about though is in your situation, and I'm assuming, but you can, so please correct me if I'm mistaken. You identified as trans, but never as bi or as gay, for example,
Mm,
or as anything in between in the spectrum of sexuality and gender.
yeah,
What do you notice from your research now that you've been living the life you are destined to be living?
yeah, yeah.
What's the ratio of people that you
Hmm.
notice identify as trans, not anything else, as opposed to people that think or maybe actually do identify as gay, and then I realize it's further than that at some
Yeah,
point in their life?
yeah. Well, I mean, that I think that happens a lot, because in that process of exploring yourself, um, I've always been attracted to women, and your physical attraction is, and your preferences that way are separate from your gender identity.
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying, "Well, does that mean that you like guys now?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't think so. I haven't explored that, but I'm definitely still attracted to women."
Hmm.
right.
And so, the sexuality is something that I ended up opening, as the wall came down, as those burdens lifted off of me. I explored that too. And um, I think, I was all of a sudden a lot more open to, different possibilities, and realizing that, yeah, I don't have to put myself in necessarily whatever box of being attracted,
Yeah.
sexually, to only one type of person. And
Yeah.
so, um, I explored that as well. And I find that, at this point, you know, I think that I'm attracted to many different, uh, genders and identities, and sexualities. And, I can't say necessarily that, I'm only attracted to this kind of person, or whatever. I think, now it's hard to say because I'm in a longer term relationship now, but or a long term relationship now, but um, I definitely see myself being, open to other possibilities. And I think, again, putting yourself into these boxes, I think it's always good to explore different things. And again, there's nothing ever bad about that, and realizing that, oh no, I'm not necessarily just attracted to women. I'm attracted to non-binary people. I'm attracted to men at times. I'm attracted to like cis men at times, and I'm attracted to the whole spectrum. And so um, it's something that opened up somewhat concurrently to my inner discovery of who I was, and realizing that there's much more to life than when you break that box down and open things up. There's so much more to experience in life. But not saying that having a particular preference or anything is bad, but for me, it just opened up a little bit more, certainly a lot more than what I originally thought. And even now, like I was like, and this is something that I haven't actually even ever discussed with you guys or with you, Rachel, is like, I was very like, identify as a woman, my pronouns are she, her. But, I have evolved over the last year or two. And I think part of it is, again, being okay with, presenting the way I am right now. It's not necessarily overly feminine. And but does that mean that I'm somewhere in the non-binary spectrum? And I I definitely don't identify as a guy or a male, or I'm very far on the identifying as a woman spectrum. But I do find that more and more I'm somewhat in the kind of a non-binary spectrum, and I'm okay with being in there, and not that it and I don't really worry about it too much. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably somewhere in there, but does that matter? Do I even care about that? Not really anymore,
That's a really good point, because I feel, and we've said this a number of times, we've used the word box, putting ourselves in boxes. And
Yeah,
it sounds to me like it almost doesn't matter what community you're a part of. There's pressures in every community to put yourself in a box. So whether you're part of the gay community, whether you're part of
oh yeah,
the queer community, the trans community, cis,
yeah,
I mean, like, fuck, whatever. It's like, there's, it sounds like almost every community, there's some pressure there to decide who you
yeah,
are, and to have this definite um, pronoun, and
yeah,
not say, I don't get me wrong. I am all for deciding what your pronoun is. I don't care what you
yeah,
identify.
yeah,
That's beautiful. That's amazing. But I feel like these days maybe because of that, I don't know if I'm going to anger anyone here, but because of that, there's even more of a pressure.
yeah,
You have to find and dig your roots into and be a rock for that particular pronoun. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, no, and I do think, and it's kind of exploded now in society, where a lot of people are, feeling more and more comfortable with, finding that gender identity that suits them, and a lot of people find themselves in that non-binary spectrum, and I know a lot of very conservative people that have a big problem with that, and even people in the trans community, or people like, oh, what's non-binary? You got to be, one or the other. You're a girl or you're a guy, and you know, just like sexuality, gender identity is, and just like many things in life, are a spectrum.
yes.
And so, um, you know, if you want to use she, her pronouns, or if you want to use they pronouns, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Other people I think, should respect that. But for me, it's like, I'm not overly as concerned about that now as I was before.
Mhm.
And, and maybe that's because, I've been establishing for the first couple of years, I'm she, her, I'm she, her. But, it's one of those things where, that can evolve as well. Like, and going back, to your original question way back when, um, coming out as gay and then coming out as trans, I know a lot of, like, for me, like, I was never overly feminine. I was actually like super hyper masculine.
Yes.
And, and because I was attracted to women, it was very easy for me to, to use the term, to pass as a guy, when I came out, people were blown away. It's like, what? You're trans?
Well, Ashley,
And
you're a gorgeous human being. So you were a gorgeous, gorgeous quote unquote man. You were a gorgeous
yeah,
woman. And so people
Yes.
to you. I'm not surprised. Yeah. Anyway.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And, for a while, looking at those old pictures really gave me a lot of problems. But, again, I'm more and more comfortable with who I am now. And it doesn't bother me so much to look at those old pictures. But, uh, other people, I know a lot of trans women that grew up kind of a little bit differently than me, and were very feminine, and were somewhat open about their femininity, but not necessarily coming out as trans. And so they lived their life as like in that gay man box.
Yeah.
And then they eventually, or they tried to hide it and then came out as gay. But then living like that, like you said, is not quite there. Like, there's still that itch inside you, that back of your mind, like something's still not quite right. And then they realize, that they're trans, and then they come out as trans. And then they transition, um, and their sexual attraction, is still the same. But like myself, it's like, well, I'm realizing that there's more to it than that, and now I'm attracted to other people as well. And then I think the most famous, I think, great example of that is Gigi Gorgeous. Like, if she started out, I think, very much living her life as a gay man, and coming out as gay, and then
Yeah.
coming out as trans, and then she recently came out as pansexual, and because her partner is transitioning, or has transitioned, from female to male. And so she, it's very interesting, that whole spectrum of how she's kind of experienced that whole spectrum and discovering herself, so many different situations. So if she was to, staunchly put herself in a box at one point, she wouldn't have experienced all those different situations, and been where, and be where she is today.
Yeah, true.
Like, that is life advice. Honestly, it's
Yeah,
for anybody.
yeah,
I cannot believe that it's already been about an hour, but there's a couple things just I don't want to forget to ask, or to really
yeah,
is specifically, and you kind of already, you gave some advice already, I think, a little bit to people who might be, don't be, it's never too late,
mm,
kinds of, words of wisdom or words of advice. But I want to know, what kind of advice, or what can you give allies like here,
mhm,
like, what can we do? Because I know there's sometimes allies get criticized for doing the wrong thing, or to saying the wrong thing, or coming from a good intention, or so that's my first question. If you could give
mhm,
advice to be more supportive. And then the second question,
mhm.
or advice, would be, because you are a parent, like, I don't know if this is, I don't really want you to give parent advice necessarily, but Yeah, maybe that's not a good idea, but
No, I mean that's no, I know. I do want to talk about that though too, if I can. Yeah.
I know it's such a fine line when it comes to giving, I'm not a parent, but giving parental advice, but just what can we do for our kids, for children?
Hmm. Hmm.
Anyway, so I know those are pretty broad questions, but
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, the bottom line is that, the trans population is still a very small percentage of the population, even if it's exploding exponentially.
Mhm.
It's not because there are all of a sudden more trans people in the world. It's just because it is a safer place now to come out. There's information, there's language to describe those feelings, and there's, I think maybe most importantly, there's an end game. There's like, okay, there's a resource there. Like I can actually do this. Like for me, it was that moment where I can actually do this. Is this a real possibility?
Mhm.
Because I always thought it was impossible.
right.
Right.
And so um, going into the, allyship, I think it's just important, like just as human beings that we, provided you're not, hurting someone else,
Hmm.
people should be left alone to do as they please and to be who they please. And,
Mm.
you know, uh, they can, everyone's walking their own path, and supporting people in that path I think is important. I mean, we all crave that support, that friendship, that whatever it is, whether it's from family or friends or
Mhm.
siblings. We it's important to support them along their path. And with kids, and as allies to, let's say, you know you know someone who's coming out as trans, or you have
Mm.
a friend whose child is coming out as trans, supporting them and allowing them to have that one extra person or that one extra resource to be okay with, um, you know talking the way that they feel comfortable, and being themselves around you, and knowing that you're providing that small zone of safe space around you um, to know that, no matter what, they're going to be okay, in your presence, and supporting them that way. And sometimes it's hard for, I think I've learned the hard way, it's hardest for family members,
Mhm.
especially for people that transition a little bit older. The family members get so entrenched into that identity of who they think that person is. Like, for example, some members of my family, um, uh, even, a couple of my kids, they get so entrenched into who they create in their head about who you are.
Mhm.
But that person may have been showing a completely different part of themselves for a long time.
Yeah.
And if they're finally, coming out and being open to you, that's only someone that's happier, that's going to be happier, that's going to be more free, and that's going to be more comfortable in themselves.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's an opportunity for that person as an ally or a family member to know, oh, now I can really get to know this person.
Yeah.
That's really cool that, I can be a part of their true selves, and not impose my picture of that person onto somebody,
Hmm.
but allow them to show themselves to you. And I think that's a privilege. And I think, if people can just be supportive of that and other people's journey and other people's discovery, and yeah, maybe, you're like, wow, that person's being really flamboyant, or what. I know I did a lot of things myself, like, I'm surprised myself with some of the things I did, but you know what, that's part of the process. That person's going to learn from that, and you have to let them go through that process. You can't control somebody's process, you can't control somebody's thoughts.
No.
And I think, that's the one thing that, for allies, is to just, be that supportive person. And um, when you have a child that is, expressing different feelings, let them express those feelings. It might be just a few questions, and then, they realize, well, maybe not for me. Just kind of an interesting thought. But,
Yeah.
if someone really feels that, like I did, that they were, essentially, as they say, born in kind of the wrong body, it's sometimes can take time to discover that. But I think it's important to support that, because, having to go through, two puberties is not the best.
No.
And and there are ramifications of that, in terms of, needing future surgeries or whatever, just to feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you can avoid all that, like, I just look at a lot of the kids nowadays, and they're just being themselves,
Yeah.
and some of them are on puberty blockers, and, just gives them more time to be themselves. And, I can tell you right now that the percentage is next to zero in terms of people that feel like they need to do that or are willing to do that. Just being willing to do that, I think it's approaching zero. It's a very, very low percentage of people that will be like, yeah, I don't think that's for me. I'm going to stop taking that puberty blocker and then go back to what what I was previously doing. And I think so many people don't realize that, people that are fighting for for kids not to be put on medications and stuff like that. It's just giving them a little bit more time to be themselves, and it makes such a world of difference by the time they're 18, 20, 25, and they haven't had to go through in my case, like a male puberty. It just is just so it's so I smile, and I'm so happy for those kids that have been able to do that, and for those young women that have been able to do that, and young men that have been able to do that, going the other way. And
Because
um,
speaking,
hmm,
talk about trauma. Like, I mean, that
yeah,
if you want to, if somebody wants to say that it would be traumatic for a child to go through and transition or whatever, however they want to put it in a negative light. I mean,
yeah,
come on, like, how traumatic is it to put the child through like something that is not natural to them,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was for yourself? I mean, that's trauma.
No,
Yeah.
it's an incredible trauma that these people that are opposed to allowing kids to explore themselves and to delay puberty, uh, is mind blowing, because you know um, you know I remember growing up, like, people would talk about, like, these people being trapped in the wrong body, and I'm like, well, I kind of feel that way. And and I kind of put myself in that category, but I just felt, well, I'm just going to deal with it, because there's nothing I can do. Like, I can't do anything about it. I can't transition, but now they can. And
Right.
I mean, they could back then, but it was very, very, very hard. And um, the trauma of kids not being able to do that. Again, people always talk about suicide rates, and they're incredibly, incredibly high in kids that are not supported and not able to explore themselves. And you get an incredible unhappy kids that are suicidal. Um, and I think that trauma is significantly worse than the I'll just say, no trauma of actually being allowed to be yourself.
Yep.
And uh, they always like to talk about, like, doing surgery on kids and stuff like that. Well, they don't do surgery on kids. You don't you don't do surgery until you're an adult. Even, like, as a cis woman, like, who if a cis woman wants a breast augmentation, they don't do it until you're 18, 19, 20. Like, you have to let yourself be an adult. So they're certainly not going to do gender reassignment surgery on a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these arguments are just bunk. They're just bogus, and that just doesn't happen, right? Delaying puberty for a few years, in an absolute scenario where the person delays puberty for a couple of years and decides that they don't want to transition, well, they just go off the blockers and then they have normal puberty. It's just delayed for a couple of years.
Right.
That's the end of it, but I can tell you that almost never happens. And if it does happen, it's usually because there's a massive amount of peer pressure from that person's family or that person's religious group or where they're living or whatever to not go ahead with that. And they just can't deal with that pressure, and they end up, as they say, detransitioning and going essentially back in the closet. And that's the worst trauma I think you can ever give somebody.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
and yeah, so that's why I think that support is so important as an ally, as a parent. It's the same thing. And it's not that hard to respect pronouns. If someone's not clear or you're not sure, just ask them, how do you want me to refer you? It's pretty simple. And if you mess up or you have a mind blank, just correct yourself, apologize, move on. It's just, it's not the end of the world. People mess up. I've misgendered myself before.
That's fair, And Ash, I just want to really appreciate the amount of wisdom and insight you provided, not just myself and Rachel, but also anyone that has the privilege to listen and watch this dialogue between the three of us. And just want to really thank you for being so bold, being brave. I think that's really important. And also, one of the things that we always love to ask all of our people that come on to the podcast is this: is there anything that they would like to plug or share with their respective communities of how they can access the resources you offer, the skills you offer, anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that made me happy about, and thank you, by the way, for having me on. I mean, this has actually been really fun, and we're definitely going to have to do this again at one point. But if there's one person out there that watches this podcast that can more easily take that step into fear and help, that I can help to at least just open up their mind, whether they're transitioning or whether it's something else. Whenever someone reaches out to me, I'm very happy to converse with them, whether it's through Messenger or Instagram messaging or emailing me or whatever. I'm definitely there to support anyone as much as I can. And kids, there's a few kids that I've for lack of a better word, mentored over the last few years to just have that adult that's like, what, if you do this and you transition, life is going to be okay, and I have a chiropractic practice, and I'm very busy, and I'm happier than I've ever been, and I'm very accepted by everyone in the gym that I work at, and my patients. Hopefully, they're all happy, and it seems like for the most part, like you can know that it's okay, and I think there's a lot of people in general that are under serviced for healthcare, and I've always kind of said, if there are trans people out there, or trans women that are not comfortable going to the or trans men, anybody that's not comfortable going to doctors or going to a clinic, and because of a physical discomfort, whether it's with their body or someone touching their body, or like a massage therapist or something. Like, people don't go because they are not comfortable, with their body. I just, very much, let people know that, our gym, our clinic is very, very, very inclusive, and hopefully I can give a very safe space for trans people to feel comfortable with getting a lot of times the treatment they need, any trans person.
Yeah.
And if money is an issue, then again, I always talk to people about sliding scales and such, and just making sure that finding a way to get them some treatment, because there's a lot of physical pain associated with a lot of especially trans men, with binding and everything like that, and dealing with the back pains with that, and all sorts of different situations where people aren't comfortable getting treatment or seeing a doctor, and just letting them know that my office is an extremely safe space for all trans people, and just people in general, for sure.
We will make sure, I'll say we, it's basically me, as I say we. I will make sure that's in the show notes. I do all the text.
Yes. She does all the tech stuff for sure. That
Yeah.
was the agreement from day one before we even had our first episode. If you take care of the production, you got me.
Yeah.
So
I will definitely put all that in the show notes and make sure people know they can reach out to you. And
no, and thank you again so much for having me on, and it's been a ton of fun.
And the last thing that we like to ask our friends, because we are the Getting Juicy podcast, is if you were to be any kind of juice, what kind of juice would you be, and why?
Ooh, any kind of juice. Does like lemonade count as juice? Like,
Yeah,
because
it
you
does.
squeeze lemons?
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
So very tasty and refreshing, but a little sour at times.
Love it.
it's kind
Amazing.
of because you got this like
Tangy and zesty. Yes.
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 like, I thought you were going to say, does tequila count as juice?
Well, I was gonna say, like, is this a NorCal margarita count? Because I squeeze lime in it, but
Love that.
Well, I had a feeling you were going to say something like that, but I miss those. I only have ever had those with you, and so I can't have one with you again at some point.
We will definitely. This summer in Vernon, and in the sun, in the heat of the Okanagan, hopefully we will all be safe and able to travel somewhat, and see each other in person.
And Ash, maybe that means I could get a lift with you, and maybe my future husband can come as well.
Absolutely. We have been talking about going up there for years now, and
Yes, we have.
And COVID put a pause on that for a while, but we'll get up there.
Okay,
we'll definitely get up there.
All right,
absolutely.
I'll take you up on that offer. Still, I'm glad it's
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, always.
I've been joking lately. I'm like, we'll just hope that Hero and I win the Canadian COVID vaccine lottery, because that's basically what it feels like it is these days.
Okay, so all of you out there, on a medical note, one last thing. Get yourself on the list. There is a lot of fear mongering out there about the vaccines, about the safety, and I posted something on my Instagram today about the safety on my stories, and I think COVID is not just it's awful. Many people have died about this with COVID, but it's not just about that. It's also about the long-term effects to organs, to the brain, to heart. It's not something that you want to be like, oh, I'll just get it and I'll be fine. No. I know a lot of people, patients, families, and direct people that I know that have had a lot of long-term, very negative effects from having it. and it is very, very, very highly recommended from me to think about getting a vaccine, and no matter which one it is. And the more we can get everyone vaccinated in this country, the sooner we can get together and have shows and go to concerts and have pride,
Yeah,
and have a pride parade and all that kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
yeah, just call and go to the website of a lot of different little pharmacies in your area, and usually you can get onto a list and get in pretty quick. I know a lot of people that put themselves on a wait list for 6 or 7 different pharmacies, and they were able to get in within a week. So
But how old were they? Because it's like anyone under 40 seems to be
yeah, no, they're all in their 30s.
really,
Yeah, yeah,
really. That must
yeah.
be you. Okay, interesting. Anyway, but it also depends on like where you live in the Okanagan. Like, anyway, this is a whole other whole other
Yeah,
topic.
yeah. No, just call around, and wherever there's a list, or go on their website, wherever there's a list, get on it, because some clinics are going through the vaccinations faster than others, and it's very likely you'll get a call. Certainly down here in Vancouver. In the Okanagan, might be a little less, some fewer options, but in Vernon, you should have quite a few options still.
Well, no, thank you for that. And I think it's just, I mean, I think a lot of us Canadians it's just a shit show though, anyway, with what, how they've organized it, quote unquote.
Yeah. I had a lot of criticism the first 3-4 months until the last 6 or 8 weeks or so. They've been really ramping it up, and the process is getting much, much better. In BC, it's still not that great in Ontario, but they're moving along fast now. I think the second doses will happen a lot faster than they originally anticipated as well. So I think there's a lot of positive things happening, and with the restrictions and with more and more people getting vaccinated, we're starting to see the numbers come down pretty fast. So yeah, it takes a little bit of effort, but it's definitely possible for someone in their 30s to get their vaccine pretty soon.
Okay, thank you for that positive vote of confidence.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just on the cusp, so I'm gonna have to wait just slightly longer. But Rachel, go for it.
Just do what you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. Got another how many months? What now?
Yeah. Hopefully in the next 3-4 weeks you'll be able to get something going, Hero.
Yeah, I know. I'll enjoy 29 while I have it.
Yeah, 29 is a good year. 29 is a good year. Good age to be.
Pretty transformative so far, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Come on, 30. I'm waiting for you. I'm dying here.
Skip. I honestly I'm a bit fearful about the 40.
Oh yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. 40's not so bad. Yeah. I'm looking forward to 40 next year. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I already gave it up that, several years ago I was 42. So
age.
There's so many good Gen X memes right now going on. It's awesome. I love it.
I've seen some of those too, actually.
Yeah, we're taking on the AstraZeneca.
That's what exactly. I was reading an article about that actually this morning about why is it all the Gen Xers like, because talking about all the side effects of the potential, I guess maybe, is that what it was? The AstraZeneca.
Well, yeah, it's everything on the news has been about this side effect or blood clots or whatever, and Gen Xers are like, just give it to me. We believe in science. Let's do this.
I
love it. Oh, well, actually, thank you from the bottom of both of our hearts. I'll speak for both of us again for coming on. And just, I not only did I already say that I wanted this to be a platform for you, but I just appreciate that you were so willing to, open up as much as you did. So thank you. Yes. And I just always want, even if we reach one person.
Yeah.
Right. So
definitely. And hopefully more, but definitely, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to talk to you again.
I know.
It'll happen again for sure.
Me too, and we'll do the whole wine thing at some point very soon. So
yeah, totally. We could even have your second episode, perhaps all of us together in Vernon.
Oh my God.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That could
And
be
then
a
we'll
really
make
sweet
NorCal
thing.
margaritas and have NorCal margaritas in front of us as we speak. And by the end of the podcast, it's going to be more and more fun as we go on.
Oh, totally. And you know, and then my future husband, Sydney, he's got a background in WSET and major wine spirit education. He could even be
Ooh,
someone to give some education about the NorCal margarita as well, or whatever.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. And I'm really looking forward to meeting him.
Oh, you will meet him for sure. I guarantee you. I've told him quite a bit about you, and he is excited to meet you. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
He's a really awesome, cool human being. Oh, look at Adriano's head right there.
There he is.
Adriano's on the podcast. Ooh.
Oh
He
my
is. He
god.
is. Well, he's the
Oh
one
my
who started
god.
it all. Isn't he the one who sent you to me in the first place?
Oh, yeah. You mean he was your first client?
Well, he was well, I shouldn't really say this. It's like breaking confidentiality, but he referred you to me, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's fine. I think it was that, or it was two of our other friends that are associated
Yeah.
with the gym that you're at. So,
Yeah.
anyway, but that was really funny. That's the first time anyone will have seen his head. I could squeeze it with my fingers, but it's gone now. Okay. We could just babble on and on because we've known each other for a while.
Yes.
Thank you. We would
Thank you.
have a glorious rest of your afternoon, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Yes, have a
Thanks,
great day,
Ash.
guys. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.